Sir, please don't hang up. The voice on the other end of the phone was shaking, not the usual tired monotone of a bank employee. This was genuine panic. I need you to stay on the line. She said again, and I need you to tell me exactly where you got that card. I looked down at the faded piece of plastic in my hand, my mother's old bank card. The one I'd found in a shoebox under her bed after the funeral. The one I'd almost thrown away 100 times. I never thought using it would make a bank manager sound like she was calling 911. My name is David, 52 years old, for 30 years. I worked as a high school history teacher in a town so small you could walk across it in 20 minutes. I married my college sweetheart, Ellen, and we raised 2 kids in a 3-bedroom house with a leaky roof and a yard full of dandelions. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours, or at least I thought it was. 3 months before that phone call, Ellen sat me down at the kitchen table and said the words that shattered my world. I want you out. David, no warning, no argument beforehand, just cold, final words delivered over lukewarm coffee. What? I whispered. I'm done. She said, not even looking at me. She was scrolling through her phone like she was ordering takeout. I need space. You need to leave. Ellen, what are you talking about? What did I do? She finally looked up. Her eyes were empty. You didn't do anything. That's the problem. 30 years. David, 30 years of nothing. I felt my chest tighten. Nothing? I gave you everything. You gave me a boring life? She interrupted. I'm 50 years old and I feel like I'm already dead. So yeah, you need to go. I wanted to argue, to fight, to beg, but the look in her eyes told me it wouldn't matter, so I left. I moved into a cramped studio apartment on the edge of town. The kind of place where the walls are so thin you can hear your neighbor sneeze. I slept on an air mattress for 2 weeks because I couldn't afford a real bed yet. Helen kept the house, the car, the savings account, everything. My lawyer said I could fight it, but I didn't have the energy or the money. I was lost every morning. I'd wake up and stare at the water-stained ceiling and wonder how my life had fallen apart so fast. I kept thinking about what Ellen said, that I gave her nothing, that I was boring. Maybe she was right. Maybe I really was nothing. One Saturday morning, about 6 weeks after I moved out, I was cleaning out the last of my mother's things. She'd passed away 2 years earlier, and I'd been putting off sorting through her belongings. It hurt too much, but now with nothing else to do, I finally opened the boxes. Most of it was junk, old photographs, costume jewelry, a collection of porcelain angels she'd bought from QVCAND. Then I found the shoebox. Inside was a small stack of papers, birth certificates, insurance documents, and underneath all of that, bank card. It was old, the kind with raised numbers you could feel with your fingers. The name on it was faded, but still readable. Margaret Hayes, my mother. I turned it over in my hand. There was no expiration date printed on it. Cards didn't always have them back then. I didn't even know if it still worked, but something about holding it made me feel close to her again. I slipped it into my wallet. 2 weeks later, I was at the grocery store, standing in the checkout line with a cart full of the saddest groceries you've ever seen: instant ramen, frozen dinners, a single banana. The cashier scanned everything and said, "That'll be $32.50. I reached for my debit card. Declined. I tried again. Declined. My stomach dropped. I checked my phone. My account was overdrawn. Again, I'd forgotten about the automatic payment for car insurance. Do you take cash?" I asked. "Sure," the cashier said, giving me a sympathetic smile. I dug through my wallet. $12. The people behind me in line were getting impatient. I could feel their eyes on my back. That's when I saw my mother's card tucked behind my ID. I don't know why I did it. Maybe desperation, maybe curiosity. I handed it to the cashier. She swiped it. The machine beeped. Approved. I stared at the receipt in disbelief. It worked. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured there was maybe 50 or $100 left in the account. My mom had been living on Social Security. She didn't have much, but the card kept working. I used it to pay for gas, groceries, my electric bill every time. It went through. After about a week, I started to feel guilty. I didn't want to drain whatever was left in her account, so I decided to call the bank and ask how much was in there. Maybe I could transfer it to my own account and close hers properly. That's when everything changed. I called the customer service number on the back of the card. A woman answered. "Thanks for calling First Union Bank. This is Stephanie. How can I help you?" I have a question about an old account. My mother passed away a couple years ago, and I found her card. I've been using it, but I want to know how much is left in the account so I can. Can I have the card number? Please? I read it off to her. There was a long pause. Sir, can you hold for just a moment? Sure. The whole music kicked in some smooth jazz version of a song I didn't recognize. I waited. Dan waited 5 minutes past, then the music cut off and a different voice came on the line, older, more serious. Mr. Hayes? Yes? This is Carol Winters. I'm the branch manager. Can you tell me where you got that card? My heart started pounding. It was my mother's. She passed away 2 years ago. I found it in her things. And your mother's name? Margaret Hayes. Another pause, Mr. Hayes. I need you to stay on the line, and I need you to tell me exactly where you are right now. What? Why? Please, sir, just tell me where you are. I looked around my tiny apartment. I'm at home. Why? What's going on? Sir, the account linked to that card. It hasn't been touched in over 30 years. My mouth went dry. What? And the balance? She hesitated. The balance is $1.7 million. I thought I misheard her. What did you just say? $1.7 million. Mr. Hayes, the room started spinning. That's impossible. I whispered. My mom didn't have that kind of money. She lived in a tiny house. She clipped coupons. I understand this is shocking. Carol said, her voice steady now, but I need you to come into the branch as soon as possible. We need to verify your identity and discuss the account. Is this some kind of scam? I asked no. Sir, this is very real. I sat down on the edge of my air mattress. How? I breathed. How is that possible? I don't have all the details yet, Carol said, but it appears the account was opened in 1983, and it's been accruing interest ever since. I drove to the bank in a daze. The branch manager, Carol, met me at the door. She was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a kind smile. She led me into a private office and closed the door. Mr. Hayes, I'm going to be very honest with you, she said, sitting down across from me. This is the most unusual case I've seen in 30 years of banking. She slid a folder across the desk. Inside were pages of account statements. Decades of them. This account was opened on March 5th, 10th, 1983, Carol explained. The initial deposit was $50,000. I blinked. 50,000? Where did my mom get that kind of money? I was hoping you could tell me. I shook my head. I have no idea. We were never rich. My dad worked in a factory. My mom was a secretary. Carol nodded slowly. Well, whatever the source, the money sat untouched, and over 30 years, with compound interest, it grew substantially. I looked down at the numbers on the page. $50,000 in 1983. $127,000 in 1,990,348,000 in 2,891,000 in 2010, and now in 2024. $1. 73,462,118. I couldn't breathe. Why didn't she ever use it? I whispered. Carol leaned back in her chair. That, Mr. Hayes, is the question. I left the bank in a fog. $1.7 million. My motherhood lived in a house with peeling paint and a furnace that barely worked, had been sitting on nearly $2 million, and she never told me why. I drove to the cemetery where she was buried. I hadn't been there in months. I parked and walked across the grass to her headstone. Margaret Louise Hayes, 194820222. Beloved mother. I knelt down in front of it. Why didn't you tell me? Mom? I said out loud. The wind rustled through the trees. I could have helped you. You didn't have to live like that. But even as I said it, I knew the truth. She didn't want help. She wanted me to have it. Over the next few days, I started digging through my mother's old papers. I found a safety deposit box key tucked in the same shoebox as the card. I went back to the bank and opened it. Inside was a single envelope on the front, in my mother's handwriting. For David, when you need it most. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside was a letter. My dearest David, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and if you found the card, then I'm guessing life has gotten hard. Want you to know something, that money was never mine. Not really. It came from your father. I know that will confuse you. Your father wasn't a rich man, but before he died, he did something I didn't know about until after he was gone. He took out a life insurance policy. A big one. He never told me. He just wanted to make sure we'd be okay when he passed. The payout was $50,000. It felt like a fortune, but I didn't need it. I had my job, I had the house, I had you, so I put it away. I told myself I'd save it for an emergency, but the emergency never came. Years passed. I'd check the account once in a while and watch the number grow, and I started to realize this. Money wasn't for me, it was for you. I didn't want to give it to you when things were good. I didn't want you to lose your way. Money can do that to people, but I knew that someday life would knock you down, and when it did, I wanted you to have a way back up, so I waited, and now, here you are, David. I don't know what's happened, but I know you're strong, you're kind, and you deserve a second chance. Use this money wisely, not to run away, but to build something new. I love you. Mom, I sat in that bank vault and cried like I hadn't cried since I was a kid. She knew somehow. She knew. The first thing I did was pay off my debts, all of them. Credit cards, car loan, the medical bills from when I had that kidney stone last year gone for the first time in months. I could breathe then. I bought a house, nothing fancy. Just a small 2-bedroom place on the outskirts of town. With a big backyard and a porch. It felt like mine. I quit my job at the high school, not because I hated it, but because I realized I'd been teaching out of obligation, not passion. I wanted to do something that mattered, so I started a nonprofit. A scholarship fund for kids who couldn't afford college. I named it after my mother, the Margaret Hayes Foundation. Ellen found out about the money. Of course, small towns talk. She called me one evening about 3 months after I'd moved into my new house. David? I recognized her voice immediately. Ellen, I heard you came into some money. I didn't say anything. I was thinking, she continued. Her voice suddenly soft. Maybe we could talk about us, about trying again. I closed my eyes. A few months ago I would have said yes. I would have taken her back in a heartbeat, but now. No, Ellen. What? I said no. David, don't be ridiculous. We were married for 30 years. And you threw me away the second things got boring. She was quiet. You didn't want me when I had nothing. I said, you don't get to want me now that I have something. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. Ellen, you taught me that. I hung up. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my son. Jason. Jason was 28. He lived 2 states away and worked in finance. We'd always had a complicated relationship. He was closer to his mother, always had been. The letter was short. Dad, I heard about Grandma's money. I'm glad you're doing okay, but I wanted to remind you, Grandma always said I was her favorite grandson. I think she'd want me to have some of that money. It's only fair. Let me know when you can transfer it. Jason, I read it 3 times. Then I called him. Jason, it's Dad. Oh, hey, did you get my letter? I did. So? When can you send it? I took a deep breath. I'm not sending you anything, Jason. What? Why not? Because that money was a gift from your grandmother to me, but she loved me. Dad, she told me all the time, she loved you, but she left the money to me. That's not fair. Jason, when's the last time you called me? Silence. When's the last time you asked how I was doing? When's the last time you cared about anything other than what you could get? Dad, that's not. You didn't call me when your mom kicked me out. You didn't call me when I was sleeping on an air mattress in a studio apartment, but now that I have money, suddenly you care. I'm your son. Then act like it. I hung up. He sued me 2 months later. I got served with papers. Jason was suing me for half the inheritance, claiming my mother had verbally promised him money before she died. It was a lie, and we both knew it, but he didn't care. I hired a lawyer, a good one. The case went to court. The courtroom was small. Jason sat on one side with his lawyer, a sharp-dressed guy who looked like he charged $500, and Hurry sat on the other side with mine. The judge was an older woman with silver hair and a no-nonsense expression. Jason's lawyer went first. He painted a picture of a grandmother who adored her grandson, who'd always told him he'd be taken care of. Your Honor, he said, it's clear that Mrs. Hayes intended for her grandson to benefit from her estate. The fact that she left everything to her son is simply an oversight. Then it was my lawyer's turn. She stood up and held up the letter my mother had written. Your Honor, this letter, written in Mrs. Hayes' own hand, makes her intentions crystal clear. She left the money to her son, not her grandson, and she explicitly states that she wanted him to have it when he Needed it most, she paused. The plaintiff is a successful financial analyst making six figures a year. He does not need this money, but Mr. Hayes, who was recently abandoned by his wife and left with nothing. Did the judge read the letter? Then she looked at Jason. Mr. Hayes, she said, why are you here? Jason shifted in his seat. Because it's not fair, Your Honor. My grandmother loved me. I'm sure she did, but that doesn't entitle you to her money. But, case dismissed. The gavel came down. Jason didn't speak to me after that, neither did Ellen, but honestly, I didn't care for the first time in my life. I felt free. A year later, I was sitting on my porch, drinking coffee and watching the sun come up. The Margaret Hayes Foundation had given out its first 10 scholarships. I'd met every one of those kids, heard their stories, seen the hope in their eyes. It felt good, better than anything I'd ever done. I thought about my mother, about the letter, about the way she'd saved that money for 30 years. Just waiting for the moment I'd need it. Most been right, I did need it, but not just for the money. I needed to know that someone believed in me, that someone thought I was worth saving, and now I was passing that gift forward. If you enjoyed my story, I hope it reminded you of something important. Life will knock you down, people will walk away, you'll feel like you have nothing left. But sometimes, in the darkest moments, you'll find something you didn't know was there. A second chance, a way forward, and when you don't waste it, use it to build something beautiful, because that's what my mother wanted for me, and I think it's what we all deserve. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more real stories about family, betrayal, and second chances. Thank you for listening.